Welcome to Reddit Recap. Don't forget to subscribe. Reddit asks, when you're lying in bed at night, do you ever randomly remember some relatively minor social missteps or poorly chosen words you said years earlier? And then beat yourself up over it even though it really wasn't a big deal? If so, what happened? I went to Dairy Queen with my daughter. She brought along her kitten. The cute girl at the walk-up window asked my daughter what the kitten's name was. Princess was the response. Smiling and feebly attempting to make conversation. I said today to indicate that my daughter changed the cat's name frequently. I got a dirty look and the girl left the window to go make whatever cold treat we had ordered. It wasn't until later, on the walk home, that I realized that she thought I was telling her to hurry the hell up and make my order. Still haunts me years later for some reason. Was talking with a black friend of mine, and we were discussing random haircuts and styles we would get if we were other races. I said I wanted that common look. He thought I said that common look I meant the rapper. Shaved head with a nice trimmed up goatee. It didn't dawn on me until a week later why he gave me that weird look after I said it. He thought I was saying that common look every black guy has. Still makes me twitch every once in a while. When I was in 5th grade, our teacher said a joke in front of the class and everyone laughed including myself. After the laughter died down, a girl looked up at me and said, "You have a really damn disgusting laugh. You." I became so self-conscious about laughter since that specific day. And after years I have trouble actually laughing. My brain kinda made it a habit to just smile or slightly chuckle at something, even if it is really funny. Edit. The girl's last name, when translated from my native language to English, is Cock. Have a nice day. I made a presentation in my public speaking class in college about how antidepressants were bad and you should seek other methods of treating depression. This was dumb for a few reasons. I just had a bad experience with antidepressants in high school but apparently could only see my own perspective. It was just a class to teach public speaking methods and I did not need to pick such a heavy topic. Somehow I was so self-absorbed I could not register the weird looks I was getting from people. And when a classmate said well that was ballsy to me after class I did not understand. I was a psychology major and I should know better, and I do now. Anyway, that one stabs at me. I also made a presentation in my sociology class while semi-high which was supposed to be about myself and my relationship to society, and I included a bunch of weird modeling pictures and stuff about my eclectic music taste. Oh, I'm so special, I like Missy Elliott and Tom Waits. Is that what this is about? Anyway, I am going to bury my own head now. Freshman year of high school. It was one of those days before school starts and you meet your teacher and your parents are there. My teacher was handing me a piece of paper and I didn't see the paper so I shook his hand. He said oh and my mom said and I panicked and said I just wanted to be polite. So I still want to die when I think of that. I went through a phase where I scolded people for reading Harry Potter because my parents told me it was evil. Lots of awkward situations because of that. This happened back when I was 6th or 7th grade. Me and a couple of friends were browsing the neighborhood our school was in after the school day was over. We happened on a bus stop with couple of girls seemingly our age. We stopped and tried to chat them up, but their bus came soon after and they had to go. We see their bus stop at a traffic light not 20 meters away and one of us says let's run to the next stop. Nobody thought to ask then what? And off we were, sprinting madly behind the bus. Surprisingly enough, we somehow made it to the next stop just as the bus was arriving. Then the doors opened. The girls sat there giggling and full stop, full stop, full stop. We did nothing. Literally. I even remember it like the bus driver held the doors a bit longer. But I might be imagining it as the memory is so old. We just sat there, trying to catch our breaths as my lungs burned. And then the doors closed and the bus went off to the next stop. And none of us said anything. We just walked it off. Went on to the next stupid shit we would do. I don't know about any of the other guys, but this still haunts me as one of the cringiest moments of my life so far. Bro, I can't even begin to pinpoint one event. I guess one thing is when I was 11. I asked my teacher if I could go to the bathroom 3 times during class and told me no. And well, sure enough, I couldn't hold it any longer and there's bullying for the next 6 months. Literally shakes me in bed about how I have never felt that low before. Somehow I managed to live through it though lol. We all got flaws. Mine is a bladder that urinates prematurely. Yes. When I was in high school we had to give in feedback forms about our teachers. I was just going to submit mine totally blank. But the teacher in charge at the time told me that I had to write something for every teacher. Stupidly, I decided to be completely honest and to write exactly what I thought of them. It was all nice. Except for one teacher's which was just ex-miss is very scary but she's a good teacher. I meant both of those but it didn't matter. The teacher was seriously hurt by it. Although she pretended it was NBD at first. Then as the weeks went by she would mention it once a week. Gradually seeming more and more upset. Until one day, when another student mentioned being scared to ask her about something. She shouted at him for an entire period. She also mentioned me a bunch. Saying she would never forget what I said but could forgive me. Anyways. She was the type of teacher to really consider her students to be her own kids and I guess me being scared of her hurt her. I do regret that. Last year I saw a 4-year-old kid with his father. And the kid wants to go to X place but the father wants to go home. So the kid was crying and slowly running to X place and the father was calling him to return now. And dummy said to the father if you want I'll go get him for you and there was a woman laughing at that. And the father with a WTF face said no. Thanks. In primary school, this girl really looked like my friend from the back. I went up to her, tapped her on the shoulder and said hi. Then played it off like I didn't just mistake her for someone else and left. That was probably 23 years ago now. When I walked down the aisle at my wedding, I was so nervous and focused on not tripping that I did not acknowledge my dad. I didn't realize this until I saw the video my aunt had made for me. You can see my dad lean in to give me a kiss on the cheek but I just keep walking. He kind of shrugs and then goes to sit down. It's been 18 years and this still flashes through my head when I'm trying to fall asleep. Also, that time I was trying to get to the school bus and the sidewalk was icy. So I slipped and fell really hard on my butt. The kids on the bus laughed at me. So I chose to sit there with my head down, wishing I could disappear. While the bus drove away and I walked a mile home, yes, in the snow, uphill, both ways. When I was 6, my teacher asked us what's our parents' occupation. I said my mum does the dishes. And after 5 minutes of explaining what she does at home, my teacher just took it as my mum is a housewife. My mum is a chemistry teacher. And I told her that I said that when I was 12. You really can't blame me. I didn't really think about where my mum went during her work hours. I just knew she went somewhere. And just kept playing with my toy cars which I stole from my brother. In 8th grade I farted once. And a few minutes later, someone smelled it and asked who did it. They asked if it was me and I just started crying. I used to be very sensitive and so I thought they were accusing me and felt really bad. So I cried. It's partially because of that I am now much less emotional. And tend to keep my emotions bottled up. Edit. Clarified that I bottle up my emotions. A couple of years ago I was at the drive-up window at my bank. When the transaction was finished, I started to raise my hand to wave goodbye to the teller. But instead of waving, I started to flip him off. It happened completely subconsciously. I don't think I was able to stop it in time because he had a shocked look on his face. I eventually apologized but I still feel horrible shame over it. Every time I see him the shame comes back. Plus now I have a crush on him. I was around 15 and having a complete breakdown of all aspects of life. My mother had died suddenly. I had untreated mental illness and was self-harming a lot for years and no one was listening. My dad was understandably a wreck. And school fell to the wayside. I was barely going and intending on dropping out. I couldn't do anything, let alone it all. There was a high school dance. I was desperate to have some fun and pretty much have this be the highlight before I left. Though I failed at communicating this. I really wanted a friend to dance with me and our other friends. She was awkwardly sitting alone. I pushed her too hard and made her cry. I couldn't see through my own shit to see how bad of a position I put her in. All I could see was my world collapsing. We never spoke again. She went from my best friend to nothing in one night. That was 15 years ago and I still feel awful. Hindsight is always 20/20 as they say. I had some mean girl moments growing up that I deeply regret as an adult. I was in 5th grade or so and I was sitting in class with a couple classmates. We were talking about Weird Al songs we liked. This one girl asked, "Have you heard some Weird Al song?" And I followed with, "Have you ever heard I'm So Sick of You?" Which I guess they hadn't heard because she looked immediately down at the desk. Sort of somber. And the dudes did a little ho-ho as if I did a nice burn. I guess they thought I was telling this girl I was so sick of her. I had no clue at the time though. So I just let it ride. Still feel bad about that one. My weed guy came over to my apartment and tried to give me a handshake that involved a fist pound and other not so complicated gestures. I totally fumbled it and he said, "Oh man. Just hold up and let's try that again." So we tried again and I fumbled again. He just sighed, sold me some weed, and left. I've never felt so white. I ended up getting a new weed guy because I was so embarrassed. I often lie in bed thinking about an obnoxious thing from grade 9 I wrote in someone's school yearbook. I'm 38 years old. I was 8 and I was at church in the kids service and they always picked a kid to participate and they'd usually get a prize after. That day they chose by asking us why we should get to go up and I literally said my aunt works here so I deserve it. I was an entitled little shit. Every time I remember it I die a little inside. When I was 12 me and my mate found our favorite English teacher's Facebook account and found out that he was a pretty big alcoholic. My mate told everyone about this and we both got detention the whole week because of it. The worst thing wasn't the detention. It was the fact that the teacher no longer liked us and he put less effort in his class, making us mostly do book work. 4th grade classroom. We were having a face-off between students on who could name the capital of whichever state our teacher named. I had been on a roll getting a few correct in a row. Then the teacher says Kentucky. With all of the enthusiasm and seriousness in the world. I screamed Frank fart. Everyone was dying laughing except for me. At the time. Looking back. It cracks me up that I was so upset about it. In year 1 or 2. I had a bigger vocab than most of the other kids. And I just discovered the word feline. We were, I think, talking about what it'd be like to transform into animals. And I wanted to say that it'd be cool to turn into a feline. Because I loved cats. What came out was I really want to turn into a female. I was in the 4th grade and it was Valentine's Day. I was the new kid in school and this one boy had been picking on me all year. My 10-year-old self was very non-confrontational so I wrote a paragraph on the back of his Nerd's Valentine explaining that I don't like it when he's mean to me. And I don't understand why he has to be. He couldn't read my handwriting and brought it to the teacher who made me read it aloud to both of them. I think about that day every day of my life. He even ended up finding me online and contacting me to apologize a few years ago but all I can think of is the cringe. I was visiting Portland for a wedding that lined up with my birthday as well. We went out to celebrate and finished the night at a karaoke bar. Realizing I'm too drunk to sing I picked My Name Is by Eminem as my song to perform. There's 2 versions of that song. One is the original release. The other tamed down, which you most commonly hear today. The woman controlling the music put on the original. And off I went. One of the lines at the end is running over lesbians in a spaceship while they screaming at me let's just be friends. I finish the song and I'm met by applause from my friends and one other table. The rest of the place is silent. The DJ goes nice job. Don't know if it was the best choice for gay women's night though. And at that moment I wanted to leave my skin. In 7th grade. A cute girl asked me to sit next to her. I said my mom won't let me sit next to girls. My mom said no such thing. I accidentally mixed up an inside joke with the wrong friend group with disastrous results. Friend group number 1. The joke was when someone calls and asks who's all there, we would add Daryl to the list of names. Daryl wasn't a real person. The joke wasn't really funny and made no sense out of context. But I guess that's why it was an inside joke. Friend group number 2. I was hanging out playing some drinking games with a bunch of people that I hadn't hung out with in a while. It was a kind of get together to remember a friend that they had who had recently died in a car accident. I didn't know him that well, but I was always down to party. Anyway, the phone rings, and the person who answered started listing off names. Sorting my cards for another round of presidents and assholes, I offhandedly said, "Hey and Daryl." It was the typical record scratch moment where everyone stopped and looked at me. Daryl was the name of the friend who had just died. This happened in 2002 and I still think about it all the time. I was visiting my cousin about 4 months ago and we didn't have the same greeting handshake. So it was like that really weird thing with your hands where you end up in some super awkward handshake. Last night I thought about this like 20 minutes and blamed myself. SMH, that was super unnecessary. Junior prom, I blurted out during dinner to my date, "I'm so bored," and I have no idea why it came out of my mouth. I'm pretty well mannered and quiet. I forget how I tried to play it off, but I felt so bad. That's all for this video. You made it to the end. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing so you know when the next videos are released. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.